everybody. Welcome back to the Lion's Den. Today we speak with Carole Robin, who for a very long time taught a course at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, a course called Interpersonal Dynamics, which the students dubbed touchy-feely. And this is a really interesting conversation, really interesting course idea, honestly, where Carole basically dives into the people side of business and says, hey, look, when you guys are running a business, there are vendors, partners, customers, there are all these people, right? And they're your coworkers, all these people. How do you build the most beneficial, collaborative, mutually creative and warm relationships with all of those people in order to facilitate better business, faster business, business with more trust? And so she walks us through actually a couple tips and tricks that you can use even in your daily life in order to build better, stronger relationships faster. And so this is a really cool conversation. You'll hear all about, she's got a book, she's got a nonprofit that she runs now. She has some resources where you can go and learn a lot of these interpersonal dynamics, tips and tricks. And so I highly recommend you check it out. Carole, we're obviously going to talk a lot about interpersonal dynamics. That's your specialty.
Yeah.
You taught at Stanford for a very long time on this topic. You had a very, very popular course there. We all have interpersonal relationships. I have no idea if I'm managing mine properly. I just kind of do what I do, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So
You're not alone.
Yeah. So I'm very interested to learn more about this. Maybe give us a little background. How did you even come about like creating this course in the first place? And then we could talk about why it was so popular.
Well, so just as a matter of record, I didn't create the course. I'm often credited with that, but because I became known as the queen of touchy-feely, which touchy-feely is what the students call the course, even though it's called Interpersonal Dynamics. Mm-hmm. And people think I invented it. I didn't invent it. It was there when I got to Stanford. If anybody invented it, it would be the co-author of the book that we wrote, David Bradford. And it is legendary. It's often considered the most it's numerically the most oversubscribed to elective in the Stanford Graduate School of Business curriculum for many, many decades, which is part of what makes it legendary. Mm-hmm. And the premise of the course is that people do business with people, not with ideas, not with products, not with strategies, not with money, but with people. So until you learn to get the people part right, you might be limited in how successful you're going to be professionally. And that's why it is this signature course at the Graduate School of Business and not hidden away somewhere in a psych department.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons that I became known as the queen of touchy-feely and was credited with developing it is that I was not a career academic. And so because I had multiple careers, I could often help students understand how, had I known what I was now teaching when I was managing people, hiring people, trying to develop people throughout my careers, I would have been better off. So what would you like to know about it? Because I'm not sure where to start.
Well, I guess maybe let's just talk about the course itself. So like, I'm assuming there was some sort of course syllabus where you're hitting on specific like main topics, and then you would dive deeper. So like, what are some of the main topics that we even could dive into?
So before I dive into the topics, I'll say that one of the things that makes the course unique is the pedagogy, meaning the way in which students learn. And that is something called T group. The T stands for training, not therapy. And the idea is that you learn how to be interpersonally competent best by actually engaging with other people interpersonally, and then finding out what it is that you do that makes you more effective and less effective, rather than listening to some prof tell you about it or reading about it. So it's a very experiential based course. Mm-hmm. What you learn in the course of a quarter is, what are the ways in which I show up that build trust or result in people trusting me less? Have me be more influential or less influential. Have other people feel more connected to me, less connected to me. So those are the kinds of overarching themes of interpersonal competence.
Okay.
What builds trust, what builds connection, and the premise, actually, what students and now participants in the nonprofit that I co-founded after I left Stanford, that's based on everything I taught at Stanford, which we can talk about later. What they learn is that relationships exist on a continuum, and at one end of the continuum, there's contact and no connection. Those are your thousands of Facebook friends. Also at that end is dysfunction. At the other end is what a lot of these students and participants in our programs come to call exceptional, which I could talk a little bit about some of the traits of an exceptional relationship in a moment. But along the way, when you develop the competence to get to exceptional, you also get to robust and functional. So, which nobody's suggesting you should aim to make every single relationship in your life exceptional. It's impractical, it's unnecessary. But at least learn what it takes to get to functional and robust. And and there are 6 characteristics that are associated with the relationships that have moved along the continuum. The first 3 have to do with allowing ourselves to be better known and trusting each other, and trusting that what we disclose to each other won't be used against us. And the second 3 characteristics have to do with being honest with each other, learning to deal with conflict productively, and being invested in each other's growth and learning. And so those are kind of the meta themes to what students learn. So let me pause there, and you probably have some follow-up questions.
No, I mean, that makes sense. Now, I mean, what I kind of want to understand is a relationship starts. So let's say you meet somebody at an event or something like that.
Yep.
So your relationship is starting. It's, I guess, non-functional because it was non-existent at the point before that.
Yeah, it just isn't.
It isn't. Yeah. And so now you want it to be and to start moving across that continuum and become, more and more functional.
Yep.
So what are I guess what are like the first things that people should focus on in those early stages to get it from non-existent, non-functional to, okay, we're getting somewhere. This is starting to be a functional relationship.
Yeah. Well, when we're first meeting, I don't know much about you and you don't know much about me. So the first place to start is with some disclosure so that you get to know me a little bit better. And then disclosure tends to be reciprocal. If I've taken a little bit of risk and allowed you to know me a little bit, then you're more likely to reciprocate and tell me a little bit about you. So it all starts with disclosure. Now, there's disclosure and there's disclosure. When one of the reasons the course is called touchy-feely is because of the emphasis on feelings, not the touchy part, the feely part. And that's because feelings and how I'm feeling in the moment turn out to be one of the best ways to become known. I can tell you facts, I can tell you things about me, but if I tell you how I'm feeling or what I felt when something happened, you're going to learn a lot more about me a lot more quickly. So I can tell you I went river rafting with my family, and you can think, well, that's interesting. And I can tell you that I found that exhilarating. You learned a little bit more about me. Or I can tell you I went and I was terrified, but I didn't want to be left out because my whole family was going, and I felt a little coerced, but I went anyway. Now you've learned a lot more about me. All of that part is true. The exhilarating came long after the terrified part. So it starts with disclosure, and it starts with trusting enough to disclose and, believe that if I disclose a little bit to you, and I'm going to get back to like just how much disclosure in a moment, then I'm not going to freak myself out, and I'm probably not going to freak you out. And so a lot of people say, well, how much disclosure? Where do you start? And so we talk about small risks in disclosure. If you imagine 3 circles, the circle in the middle being the safety zone where you talk and share stuff you don't even think twice about. And then there's the outer circle, which is the danger zone. In a million years, I would never tell you that. But there's this circle in the middle, which we call the learning zone. It's outside your comfort zone, but it's inside your danger zone. And but students used to say, but Carole, the minute I step outside my comfort zone and share something, how do I know I'm not in my danger zone? So we came up with the 15% rule. Step a little bit outside your comfort zone, just a little. And then, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your body. You'll know. But it's likely to be a small enough risk that you won't freak yourself or the other person out. And then what happens is the other person is likely to respond 15%. And then your comfort zone with each other is a little bit bigger. That circle is a little bit bigger than it started out. Then you can go 15% beyond that. And that's how we grow and deepen a relationship. So when we first meet, I'm not going to share the most difficult things in my life, past or present. But it doesn't mean that I can't give you more true color by sharing some of the feelings associated with whatever facts I'm sharing with you about me.
So let me maybe give an example and see if I'm catching on to this.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit before we started recording. You know that I
Yeah.
live in Puerto Rico right now.
Yes.
So people often ask me, do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy living there? And so let's say I'm having that conversation with somebody. Do you enjoy living in zone? Would be to say, oh yeah, it's great. There's beaches and the weather's always nice. Food's great. Culture's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
If I wanted to step a little bit outside my comfort zone, I might say, I think I like most of the things about Puerto Rico. There are a lot of power outages here, and that can be kind of stressful, especially like if I'm in a business meeting. So we're taking some steps to, get a generator in place at our house to make sure that we can minimize that stress. Like, is it that sort of thing where I'm digging a little deeper into some feeling that I've had, or am I just getting negative at that point? Like, what is it?
No. I think that's a really good example. For you to admit that sometimes you feel stressed, is already a little bit outside your comfort zone. The fact that there are power outages may or may not be stepping outside your comfort zone. But the fact that you are stressed by that sometimes is stepping a little bit outside your comfort zone. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative. It can also be, going to the beach, is restorative for me and makes me feel alive in a way that I don't feel when I don't get that much sun. So it's, see what I'm saying? It's about, if you think about the value of emotion in communication, when we talk, it's like treble and bass in music. When there's only facts, you only have one of those things. When you have facts and feelings, then feelings are what give texture to the facts. They give meaning to the fact. But a lot of the time, we just stop at the facts.
I'm thinking about, when I meet people at events or even on a Zoom or whatever, there are, when you're having a really good conversation because I guess I couldn't really place why before we started talking about this, but those are the conversations where you are going beyond just the facts. And it's like, it's a deeper conversation in some way. I don't really know why it's deeper, but you sort of leave it thinking
I can give you some hypotheses.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, you know what? When we're only talking facts, we're connecting here, from here to there. When we get into feelings, we're dropping out of here and we're connecting from here to here. And that feels deeper. It feels more meaningful. It's also the place where we connect. That is also where empathy happens. Empathy doesn't happen up here. Empathy happens down here.
Yeah.
And that's part of what feels more meaningful when we get into feelings.
Okay. And then you are much more likely to, stay in touch with that person because you had an actual conversation, an actual deeper connection.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's sort of step one, is what it
Right.
sounds like. To get a deeper relationship is to step a little outside your comfort zone, start to share some of your feelings. And then what you said was, if you go 15% outside your comfort zone, it's usually reciprocated by the other person. And so now the conversation can take a totally different path because you're both speaking outside of your comfort zone.
That's right. And then you have a new comfort zone that you land on. And then you
Mhm.
have a choice as to whether or not you want to go 15% beyond that.
Mhm.
And what happens in these in the touchy-feely course, what happens in Leaders in Tech, is that because the environment is set up for you to constantly be testing that, the relationships go to levels that many folks have never experienced in their life, even with their closest friends and family.
Mhm.
Uh,
So that's why people love the course, because they leave it with a bunch of really good friends.
They leave with a bunch of people that they remain very close to for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so we're moving along
Yep.
the spectrum.
Yep.
What are
Then
what are
there
sort of the other
then
steps?
there's the third. So the first, so there's I allow you to know me better. You allow me your I allow you to know me. You allow me to know you. We
Yep.
trust each other. We're deepening our relationship along that dimension. And then now we have a relationship and we have an ongoing relationship. And inevitably, you will do something that doesn't sit well with me. If we're in a no relationship has no problems ever, no matter how great they are. So now comes a really, interesting and important juncture in most relationships, which is, am I going to be honest with you when you do something that ticked me off a little bit? Like I reached out to you several times and you didn't answer. And in fact, it seems like when I want to get together with you, it's only when I reach out to you that anything ever happens. You never reach out to me. So
Mhm.
now it's not a really big deal, but it bugs me a little bit. So what do I do with that? If I say nothing, you will continue to do what you've been doing. And then we run the risk that while it only bugs me a little bit right now, it will bug me more over time. And
Mhm.
then the more it bugs me, the harder it becomes to raise it with you. We call that a pinch. It's not a great big huge problem, but I feel a pinch. So one of the things that folks learn in this course and in the programs is how is to express a pinch when you feel it, as opposed to at the minute you feel it and you feel it getting bigger. You don't have to express every pinch, because everybody's like, oh my God, I don't want to be seen as the most sensitive person on the planet. Everything bugs me. But when you feel it getting a little bit bigger, it's time to raise it. And a lot of times people don't raise it because they're afraid that it'll turn into a really big thing. But it turns into a much bigger thing if my feelings escalate and get bigger and bigger.
Right.
So, a lot of people, when it comes to pinches, think, it's not worth it. And one of the things I always say is substitute the pronoun it for I'm not worth it, you're not worth it, we're not worth it. And then ask yourself again whether it was worth it.
Mm. Yeah.
So once you're in a relationship, presumably it's worth raising a pinch before it becomes what we call a crunch.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes
So,
sense. Yeah.
so that's the stay on it, be honest with each other part. And then there is, especially in work situations or in situations where you're spending a lot of time with people and you're developing something, you're interdependent with each other. Then there are things beyond pinches, behaviors that the other person engages in that become problematic for you, or that turn out to be problematic for you. Now you're into the power of feedback in building relationships. And that's another part of being honest with each other, not just expressing pinches, but we walk out of a meeting. You interrupted me 3 times during that meeting. And I have some feelings about that. so I can sit on them. And the next time we're in a meeting, you can interrupt me 5 times and I can get more and more ticked off about it. Or I can say, Nico, you interrupted me 3 times during that meeting. This is how to give behaviorally specific, effective feedback. And when you interrupted me, I felt, and now we're back to feelings.
Okay.
What did I feel? I felt dismissed. I felt unimportant. I felt irritated. I felt frustrated. But the mistake most people make is they say things like, I felt that you didn't care. Well, I don't know whether you care or not. You didn't say I don't care. So there's a very specific formula to giving feedback effectively and a model that we use, which is in any interaction between 2 people, there are 3 realities. There's what's going on for me, there's what I do, and there's the impact it has on you. Those are 3 distinct realities. And at any point in time, the 2 of us are only privy to 2 of those realities. You know what's going on for you, your intent, and what you did. I know what you did and how it landed on me. 2 out of the 3. The mistake we make is thinking that we know what's going on for the other person.
Yeah.
When we give feedback. So when I stick with my reality, with the behavior, that's the one that's known to both of us. You interrupted me 3 times. I felt dismissed, devalued, frustrated, irritated. And then the other part of the formula is, and I'm telling you this because you started the meeting saying you wanted to hear from everybody. And when I don't feel heard, I am less likely to offer up my opinions. And that's why I'm telling you. Not that it beyond the fact that I'm irritated and you might want to know that that was irritating.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that last piece is critical because otherwise that probably is what slows people down from sharing these things is they think the other person may not care.
Exactly.
And if you frame it in a way where it's like, hey, look, you said you wanted this, so that's why I'm giving it to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the formula is when you do X, I feel, insert feeling word, which is harder than it sounds. By the way, we have to develop a vocabulary of feelings in the syllabus. The leaders and tech participants all get a laminated copy of it. It's in the appendix of our book. I mean, how sad is it that we are so incapable of identifying feelings because we've been socialized to leave feelings out of it. We can get back to that we have to develop a vocabulary of feelings. But when you do X, I feel Y. And I'm telling you this because what I'm hoping the outcome of this conversation is. So it's 3 parts.
Okay. Got it. Well, let's talk about, I'm kind of curious about the professional setting, the business setting, right? And you just said we were socialized to not talk about feelings.
Yep.
I think definitely in a business context, that is correct. So it's almost like you should never bring up your feelings in a business context. So I'm assuming you're not a proponent of that. You're a proponent that we should talk about them.
I would say the exact opposite. How are you going to motivate anybody without any feelings? How are you going to inspire anybody without any feelings? How are you going to create relationship with anybody without any feelings? I think the leave your feelings in the parking lot is one of the biggest disservices. That's probably not even a word that we have, perpetuated in the business world.
Yeah, I think you're right. But how do you like toe that line, I guess, between, hey, we want people to share their feelings, like, because that's how relationships are built. That's how, like you just said, motivation is created, those sorts of things. Between that and you just have people like being negative and complaining all the time, and they're no longer like focusing on the goal, the task at hand.
Well, you can give people feedback on that.
That's true.
So, I really appreciate hearing that you're struggling with this, and it's important for me to know, and we still have a job to get done. So what is it that you need in order for you to get back to the work that is got to get done.
Right.
I
Okay.
can acknowledge, I can acknowledge the feelings, I can empathize with the feelings, I can validate the feelings. So feelings don't negate action. In
Hmm.
fact, if anything, they should propel action, because if I'm stuck with negative feelings and that's what's keeping me from taking action, aren't we better off talking about it?
Right. That does make sense. That does make sense. Okay. Interesting. So, so you have all these students at Stanford Business School, right? They go through this. Um, do you have any data? Probably not, but maybe. Do you have any data of like when they leave the course and they put this into practice? Do they write back to you? Those sorts of things. Does that happen?
I cannot even begin to tell you how many emails, calls, visits I've received over the years. I mean, it's probably in the hundreds,
Hmm.
from former students who say to me, "I just got promoted. I just became a CEO. I owe it all to you. I just raised my third round. I owe it all to you." And you'd expect that from a business school. But you know, the ones that are the most meaningful to me are the ones where students write back and say, or call or visit and say, "I'm pretty sure your class just saved my marriage. I
Oh,
just
wow.
reconciled my relationship with my brother, who I hadn't talked to for 3 years. And
Hmm.
because I finally put to use with him what I learned in class." And now I get versions of that from our leaders and tech participants. We've only been in business for 7 years, but I got lots of participants from leaders in tech who are coming back saying the same thing. And now I get readers of the book who I've never even met who say the same thing. So
So,
a lot
so
of data.
let's talk about that then, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are going to think to themselves, I can't really go to Stanford.
Right.
How how can I learn this stuff? So you have a book, you mentioned, you have a nonprofit. Tell me about those things. Tell me about like what is available to people who want to dig in and learn these different methodologies.
Yeah. So the simplest, lowest cost thing to do is to buy the book.
Mhm.
It's called Connect: Building Exceptional Relationships with Family, Friends, and Colleagues.
Okay.
And it's Penguin Random House. It's available in audio. It's available on, in Kindle,
Yeah.
through all the major. So Connect by Carole Robin and David Bradford.
Okay.
Um, you can go to the book website, connectandrelate.com.
Okay.
At the book website, you can see a bunch of, you can hear interviews, you can read a bunch of articles, you can download free resources like a self-assessment where you can compare how you see yourself, give it to some other folks, how they see you, and then think, "Oh, I thought I was a really good listener. Turns out a lot of people don't think so." So it helps you create some learning goals for yourself if you want
Okay.
to read the book with some learning goals in mind. It also has guides for creating your own learning groups from the book. So that's one big resource.
Mhm.
The other one is check out leadersintech.org, which is the nonprofit that I founded. And there we have both 4-day programs that are kind of like touchy-feely on steroids.
Okay.
So you don't have to go to Stanford and you don't have to pay $100,000. You can get a 4-day touchy-feely immersion at Leaders in Tech. And
And these
then
are these are like in-person events?
yes, the
Okay.
4-day immersion is all T group based, which, as
Okay,
I
cool.
said, was the pedagogy of the course.
Right.
And people emerge from that with the same quality of incredible relationships that quarter-long experiences often lead to. And then we
Yeah.
have a year-long program called the Fellows Program for CEOs and founders and executives. Um, and then there's Carole Robin AI. So the next time you're going in to give somebody a piece of feedback and you're thinking, wait, she said something about 3 realities and what should I keep in mind? Go to carolrobin.ai, ask Carole Robin what you should do, and Carole Robin AI will remind you what the steps are in giving good feedback and
Awesome.
any other aspect of what we've talked about and more.
Got it. Well, that's awesome. So a ton of resources for everybody listening. I'm definitely going to go check out that book, see what tidbits I can pull out of that. I mean, I run a consulting firm. I've got a ton of clients. I have to build relationships with CEOs of my clients, companies all the time, but not only them, but also their employees all across the org chart.
Sure,
And
sure.
I'm probably not the best at at building great interpersonal relationships. So I could use some help for sure. I think we
Well,
all could.
look, we're all works in progress, and all of us can always use some help in getting better at both understanding ourselves, which is part of being interpersonally competent, and learning how to connect with lots of different kinds of people, because it's very easy to connect with people that are just like us.
Right.
It's a little more challenging to connect with people that are very different than us. And in fact, I always used to think the course should have been called Connecting Across Differences. But of course, in these days, you can't even say the word differences without people getting all worked up. But I'm talking about like every kind of difference you can imagine.
Yeah.
And as I said, learning when you're in a field like yours and you're dealing with a lot of different people with very different views and ideas about how to get work done, pretty useful to learn how to connect with them across their differences.
Absolutely. Well, Carole, thank you so much. We will link to all of those different resources you said in the show notes. And just want to thank you for joining me today in the Lion's Den.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Nico.